Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Junkyard Digs. As you can see behind me, everything is an absolute disaster here in the shop. Last week was the first really warm week of the year, so I took the week off to go work out at the new place and get a whole bunch of stuff done on our land and film some stuff out there and just get ready to make some badass content for you guys this spring. In doing so, I didn't have enough time to whip up any fresh content or finish the F100 for you guys to have a video this week, but worry not, Angus has got you. If you remember a couple episodes ago, Angus finished up his Dodge D200 and traded that sucker off for an 82 El Camino. Well, today's story is about that car exactly, and the endeavor of driving it all the way from the Twin Cities to his hometown and then back to here. Let's go see some calamity.
Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Junkyard Digs. Today I'm your host, Angus, and we will be taking on this 1979, 82 El Camino that I just traded for our old D200. We'll find out if that was a fair trade or not soon, I'm sure. This is not our usual revival scene because this car actually runs and drives and stops. I drove this car here from maybe a mile. Admittedly, it was not a good drive. The most important part is this car has a title, so I own it. Yay. So let's take a quick tour and we'll just dive in. Because I want this thing to run and drive. I have plans. We're going to do some stuff.
So starting at the front, we've got our big round ugly headlights. There's this big dent right here, and it looks like somebody already bondoed this hood, so I'm not entirely clear on what the heck is going on. There's clearly some work done here and down by the corner of the bed. Once again, we have our centerline rims. I don't know, I'm not a fan, but somebody clearly was. Ahead of the rim, there's this nice big access hole, you know, for grabbing your things out from under the car, and it's got another access hole behind the wheel for accessing your rearward things. Moving up along the bed line, it would appear that we're missing some sort of ridge cap, and that is especially true on this bedside because there's a seam that I can just pull apart, and it's cracked the entire length of the passenger side all the way up to the cabin. The interior of this car is actually in pretty decent shape, like the seat isn't ripped. The headliner and upper trim pieces all seem to be missing for whatever reason. We're missing a radio, but we do have that aftermarket gauge cluster, so really with that, who needs a radio? Oh, finally, I was wondering when one of these cars was gonna have actual gloves in the glove box. Hell yes, I'm sold. This car is my new favorite. Insurance card, I think, and an owner's manual for 1982, it looks. Now I'm especially confused. Behind the seat, we have something that I completely did not know about. Many El Caminos copied front-end body styles from cars of the same era. So this floor pan is actually out of the sedan Malibu of the same era, I suppose, and it goes all the way back into the passenger footwell, or what would be the passenger footwell if somebody hadn't put a big old round piece of glass here. Oh, yeah. This is a 305, according to the previous owner. I have not checked the casting numbers, which is just about the only way you can tell on a small block Chevy. So there is still a small chance that this is a 350, or if I'm really, really lucky, it could be a 400. Either way, neither of those displacements excuse this single plane intake. Now, for those of you who don't know what the importance of a single plane versus a dual plane intake is, let's cut away to Kevin so he can explain it, because boy, I sure would love to know.
Thank you for that, Angus. All right, let's talk a little tech. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the office. Let's learn some stuff. As Angus mentioned real quick, we're going to talk about the difference between a single plane and a dual plane intake. And this all boils down to, are you building a race car? And the answer, if you're watching this channel, is probably no. I've never built anything on this channel that I would consider a race car. Actually, ever in my life have I built anything I would consider a race car. And the majority of people who think they are also aren't building anything that should be considered a race car when it comes to purchasing parts. Prime example, intakes. If you have a car and you want to drive it on the road, You want to drive it to car shows, you want to go on road trips, you want to drive it to work every day, you want to have fun with it once a month on the street. The best thing for your car is likely a dual plane intake, and we'll talk about why in a second. If you're building a car you fire up in the garage, put on a trailer, drive to a racetrack, it lives above 5,000 RPM all day, goes back on the trailer, and comes home, you're building a race car, and you probably want a single plane intake. To explain this, we'll start off with our common everyday dual plane intake. As you'll notice from above, there is a bridge right down the center that divides the intake into two halves. Here's a good cutaway of a dual plane intake. The space in the center where all the runners converge, that empty pocket of air right there, is called the plenum. A dual plane intake has two plenums, an upper and a lower plenum. What this does is essentially divides your engine into two 4-cylinders. Doing this allows better vacuum signal to our carb, and better vacuum signal always means better fuel atomization, which always means your engine runs cleaner and better and more efficiently. On mini engines, especially the GM firing order like this small block Chevy, cylinders 7 and 5 fire right next to each other, and 8 and 4 fire right after each other. And what this does is the first cylinder gets the most of the fuel charge available in the plenum, and the second cylinder that fires is starved a little bit. Now this only occurs when all 8 cylinders share one common plenum, such as a single plane intake. The dual plane, they're separated, they're divided, they're two halves of a motor, and they don't interfere with each other, and that provides us better vacuum signal. Dual planes are also shorter, which allow you to put a carb spacer on top, because as you can see, a carb spacer helps you make that transition into the runner all that much cleaner, and once again just provides better airflow and volumetric efficiency. Now you're probably saying, if these are so good, Kevin, why do the single planes exist? What's the problem that they solve that dual planes have? Above 5,500 RPM, a dual plane intake will start to restrict itself and not move as much air as a single plane. But remember, we're building street cars. They're shifting at 5,500 RPM, or they're out of valve train and it's just floating anyway. You want to focus on low RPM torque and low RPM drivability so you can hammer it off the line. It's not going to spit and sputter. You're going to get the most torque right away, and you will have the most fun. Build your engines for torque if you're on the street. If you're on the racetrack and your engine regularly lives from 5,000 to 7,000 or 8,000 RPM because you're getting every ounce of horsepower you need around those turns or down that quarter-mile strip, you're going to want to have peak volumetric efficiency above 5,500 RPM, which is where the single plane intake comes in. You will not have as good of running quality down low, but you will scream up top. While we're here real quick, I want to touch on carb spacers since I mentioned those. For your open plane, you're going to want a nice big open carb spacer. For your dual plane, remember the whole purpose is to have ultimate vacuum signal by dividing the engine into two, so you want to keep your left and right venturis for primary and secondary on the carburetor divided. They don't want to see any intake signal from the other side of the carburetor. You're either going to want one with a bridge in the center like this, which will keep your left and right divided. Avoid these. They have a hole in the middle, which literally, once again, is defeating the purpose. Sure, someone that has a dyno might say that it makes 8 horsepower up top, but that's not what we're focused on when we're building street motors. Another option is a 4-hole like this. Be very careful with these. Just make sure that your primary and secondary throttle blades clear. Pinch it against the carburetor, make sure everything clears just fine. Put it on the car, make sure it clears before you fire it. I've seen this happen way too often. Someone bolts one on, they whack the throttle all the way open for the first time, the blades dig into the aluminum of the 4-hole, and then it's just sitting there at 6,000 RPM trying to throw the rods out of the block. If you need to do a little shaving to make sure that you have 1/8 of an inch instead of a 1/16 clearance, just do it. It's much better to be safe than sorry. One thing to avoid altogether if you have the option is anything, honestly, by the Mr. Gasket Company, especially their carb spacers. Unfortunately, if you go down to O'Reilly's and grab an intake spacer because you forgot to order one, this is what you're going to end up with. Be it their single hole, 4-hole, or quadrajet adapter, they all have the same problem, and it's this little bastard right here. They decided to put their damn logo on the sealing surface, and this logo is recessed into the metal. What that does is effectively the only spots that seal with your gasket are right here. And they're tiny. I mean, like the tip of a Sharpie wide. It's hopeless. And I don't know how many times I've had cars develop massive vacuum leaks because I forgot to fix that. What you do, get some steel stick, JB Weld steel stick, push it down into that little space right there, grab a razor blade, cut it off, mat it with your finger, sand it, whatever you gotta do to make sure it's both filled and perfectly flat. Then you have a chance in hell at making your miscured gasket carb spacer work. The other issue I commonly run into is that the supplied gaskets for the quadrajet adapters are super thin on the backside and don't sit very well on the intake and have basically no engagement on the carb spacer either. But the best thing to do is get a square spacer like this, grab a small pair of wire snips or an X-Acto knife, lay the gasket down, lay the intake side of the carb spacer on top of the gasket, and cut the quadrajet side shape of the spacer into that gasket. So you'll basically have this nice thick edged 4-hole spacer for a square bore carb that will not impede airflow in the center. So to recap real quick, if you have a street car that lives on the street and you like tunability, a nice smooth running motor, and a nice easy driving experience with plenty of low end torque, you're going to want a dual plane. If your car lives on the racetrack and it is screaming at high RPM all day long and it is meant to perform, go ahead and get yourself a single plane intake. Alright, let's get back to it. Angus has a very ambitious road trip coming up. Let's see if he can get the El Camino ready in time.
Before we turn this thing into a full-on project car, throwing it on jack stands and then covering it with spare parts, let's at least see if it runs. It drove here, but I just like to get it on footage that, yeah, it runs. Oh, manual choke, forgot. Oh, when I pull the manual choke, it pulls the whole dash off. That's really fun. Yeah, that's gonna need some work. Well, after a brief yet very telling investigation of the underside of this car, I've determined A, the floors are rusted through and the only thing holding me up is the carpet. And 2, I cannot perform a thorough investigation because the car is too damn low. So I'm gonna pop this thing up on jack stands and start the process of turning this into a shelf. Wait, I mean, finding the brake line that's broken. Yeah. The car is now up on 4 jack stands, and with a little extra light on the subject, I've determined that this car can absolutely do a one-wheel peel because this tire totally shredded. The passenger side definitely still has some life left in it, despite all the dry rotting and whatnot. Just on the passenger's tire, you can see what looks like wet marks around the outside of the tire. Looks like a fluid that's getting flung out. You can also see just barely on the bottom of the drum that's not a shadow, that's fluid. So that means we potentially have a bad wheel cylinder. Yep, that's smooth. Oh, everything's wet. The inside of the wheel is... Yep, that's... It's brake fluid. Okay, got our drum off and immediately noticed that everything inside this drum setup is covered in brake fluid. We can tell we've got some newer hardware in here. I think this is a newer set of shoes, couple new springs, but old retaining plates and an old wheel cylinder, which I am betting is the culprit for our major leak. I've never seen one leak so bad that the brakes themselves are affected by it, like the pedal. So this might be a first for me. We'll just, I'll get this torn down, we'll see what there is to see, and we'll go from there. Okay, I just returned from the parts store after a minor amount of calamity. One thing I failed to fully understand is that this El Camino is a G-body. And if you follow this channel very much at all, you'll know that G-bodies are not really our friend. Well, it all started with the diesel Buick. You can see that video right here. It's full of calamity. And then there was the Grand National. And that was a whole series full of Kevin getting his rear handed to him by this Buick Grand National. And I think we swore off G-bodies. Ish. The important thing to note about G-body rear brakes, the rear wheel cylinders are not held in with the typical 2 bolts holding it to the backing plate. Instead, these wheel cylinders have this little locking flange that you slip over the inside of the wheel cylinder once you put it into the backing plate. And it looks a lot like this guy right here. It's got little teeth that lock the wheel cylinder into place on the backing plate and allegedly hold it still. As soon as I opened the new package for the new wheel cylinder, I knew what this was and proceeded to think, I'm sure it'll come out easy. It did not. I'm just gonna sneak this whole thing back together. I'm not gonna show you because if I show you, then it's not gonna work. We've all seen drum brakes. My asleep leg. Okay, got our new line on, got our new wheel cylinder on, at least on the driver's side. Let's go ahead and see if we have any brake pedal, like at all. There's a bubble out of the master. I'm getting approximately nothing. One of my brake lights magically started working just now. Specifically my right hand turn signal. At least that's what the indicator says. That's probably not great, but well, let's think. We press the pedal, our piston moves in our master cylinder. That moves fluid down these 2 lines to the proportioning valve. It'll send fluid to the rear drums first, so they begin the braking process before your front discs do. Presumably, if all this is working, we're sending fluid to the rear brakes, but we're getting no pressure. So either we've got an entire line full of air or something else. So here we are, looking at the passenger side rear drum brake, and I was gonna leave this one alone, but I opened it up just to look, and I'm really glad I did, because I think I found another major problem. The seal on our wheel cylinder is popped off, and actually, just past that, you can see the end of my screwdriver is the push rod for that wheel cylinder. This rod is what is supposed to spread the brake shoes. As we can see, it's not doing so much of that. It's just pushing on this spring because this wheel cylinder is no longer attached to the backing plate. So either the clip broke or this came loose or somebody didn't even put the clip on, or I don't even know what happened. All I know is that's a big problem. This was never gonna work, and it's also leaking. I guess we're going around 2 for rear drums on a G-body. So this wheel cylinder can just slide around. The only thing that's holding this thing in place is the brake line. This is me wiggling the brake line from the backside. Push it in and out and all over the place. This, kids, is why you always check both sides of an axle for brakes, if not all 4 corners. You absolutely have no idea who's been in this car before you, what they did, what they didn't do. Check everything. If that had held long enough for me to get the brakes to firm up, I'd have driven it like that. All right, got our rear brakes all wrapped up now, so I'm gonna hop in and we'll see if this pedal feels any better. Let's see, third pump feels really, really firm, and it's holding, so I'm thinking that's a win. In case you didn't know, time is an illusion made up by humans to enforce deadlines. If you believe in time, you should know that some of it is past since the last time we were here working on this car. It's been a couple days. If you believe in time, then you also might be interested to know that I now have a deadline for this car. It is currently Monday, and on Friday I want to be driving this car from Minneapolis to Iowa to go down and visit Kevin and Mook, and I don't see any better deadline to get this car done and out of my way than that. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna get this car back on the road by Friday afternoon. We do have all these parts in the back that still need delivered, so I'd like to do that. And the guy I'm delivering these parts to, planning to cook some brats on Thursday, so I'd really like to have this car running by Thursday. In the time that's passed, all I've managed to accomplish is rewire the electric fans. I'm not going to show it to you because I'm really not proud of it, but I did it all without instructions. Oops. I definitely used some instructions to get that done. I'm not good with wires. They're scary. Run to the car. That's the tank. Notice how it sounds suspiciously empty? In hindsight, it's probably why it ran so terrible. It ain't got no gas in it. Okay, we got 3 gallons in the gas tank. It would appear that there was some fuel left in the carb, so hopefully it'll just fire up and it'll be great. That's better. I must have been just out of gas when I pulled this thing in here because it would not rev for crap. Oh, that runs way better. Well, we've run this engine for about 12 minutes, I think, and the fans never kicked on. So I think I wired something wrong, or the fans themselves are dead. I didn't put them on, so I really don't know. One thing I do know is while I was waiting for this to warm up, I looked up the block casting number. This one was really easy to see, and it turns out to be a 305 2-bolt main small block Chevy. So exactly what I figured it would be. 305s, not bad engines. I'm not going to swap this out for a 350 or a Stroker or a 400 or anything like that. This car honestly doesn't deserve it. It'd be a good driver. Maybe. Oh, I spoke too soon. Anyway, I'm going to look into my wiring a little bit more while I let this thing cool down. I'm going to also make sure that I have coolant, and now that I've got the engine warmed up, I think it's about time for an oil change on this thing. Once again, it's the next day, and I'd like to make this your friendly reminder to use zinc additives in your flat tappet camshaft engine whenever you change the oil. Oh no, too many zinc. I think now I know why there's an oil spot right here on the header. Some more time has passed. I've done some more tinkering, and it turns out there's a wire on this fan wiring harness that's supposed to be plugged into 12 volts keyed power. So I plugged into one of the yellow wires that was just kind of, you know, strung along here to the old fan module, and I figured, well, this guy probably knew what he was doing. Yeah, it's probably fine. We'll just hook it up to that. It'll be great. I never bothered to trace where that wire went. Turns out that wire did indeed go almost to the fuse box. It went down into the floor well and just kind of laid on the floor in the darkness. Imagine my surprise when I plugged it into keyed ignition power and the fans just started working. So that's pretty sick. I got our timing set at 12 degrees before top dead center with our vacuum advance disconnected and plugged. Nothing crazy, but it did seem to like 12 and above. So we're just going to keep it at 12. Hopefully we'll keep it from pinging. Everything's coming together except for our master cylinder, which, as a matter of fact, is actually coming apart. I got in and pressed the pedal, and the pedal went straight to the floor, and I thought, that's strange. Maybe I blew another brake line. And then I pumped the pedal again, and it started building a little more pressure, and I pumped it again, and it built even more pressure, and by the third pump, I had what felt like a good brake pedal. And that's happened to me twice now since that instance. So that's telling me that one of our seals in our master cylinder is bad. So I'm gonna just go ahead, order up a new master cylinder just to get that out of the way, make sure we're safe and good to go, and just a little extra peace of mind is never a bad thing. But besides that, we have a running, and I've already proven to myself that it's a driving car. I just gotta go down and get this thing registered, get some new tires, master cylinder, bench bleed that and install, and then we should be good for a little, oh wait, we have to make a delivery. For a little delivery and then a road trip. You know, up till now I've been treating the front brakes as innocent until proven guilty. And I finally decided to do a proper inspection on them just to see if, we need a new rotor or new pads, when I noticed something is slightly wrong. I did not need a jury to determine that that is an issue. Your hose should not be able to be seen through. Much time has passed. I got our new lines installed on the fronts, And by lines, I mean our rubber hoses, which we knew were kinked. And that led to all the hard lines on the front were rusted out, snapped off, big sad. So they're all replaced. I just finished getting the fronts bled up. Pedal feels way better. No more seeping of the pedal. So our hoses were most likely our original issue. Getting in the car. Gonna do a brake test while sitting in the car. I'm gonna do a series of emergency stop tests. Pretending to cruise along. Leaning back in my seat all cool like, yeah, El Camino's and children! It held up that time. That's good. Carrying on. Bopping along, running out of gas, not knowing I am. Deer! I'd say that's good enough. I've still got good pedal. I'll make sure I've got fluid, check my engine oil, check transmission fluid once the car's warmed up, and technically, we should be ready. So let's get this sucker off the stands. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't nervous. Got our trans topped off. It was about a quart low. Put some stop slip in there, and hopefully that'll do it, because I ain't got no more fluids. Come on, little car. Oh. Brakes work. Let's hit the road. Well, we made it to the gas station. Our fans just turned on, so that's neat. What's our temp read? About 190, that's okay. Fill up on gas and let's go get some brats. We're at it again. One thing I'd like to note, this car is A, registered to me, B, insured by me, and C, driven by me. The third one's not so important, I'm just kind of more in shock than anything. Filled up on gas, put 15 gallons in, because, well, any more than that I pretty much totaled the car. So third gear is extremely shaky and doggy. Matter of fact, it's awful on all counts. Not sure if you can tell through the camera, but this whole car vibrates really violently. According to my GPS speedometer, we're doing about 70. It doesn't smell weird. Our temp gauge is hovering a little above 190, which is okay. We've got 40 psi of oil pressure. I don't even know if the amp meter's hooked up to anything. We're like halfway there. Things are looking okay. Definitely excited to get all this weight out of the back. Just because this car is sitting like this right now, and I'm having to like look over the hood. It's not great. Well, we made it, and I definitely figured out what that hot brake smell was. I'm not sure if the camera's gonna pick it up, but there's definitely smoke rolling off of this brake. Beyond that, it was a flawless trip, especially for something I traded a piece of junk work truck for. I'm pleasantly surprised with the progress it's made, but it's still so ugly. This is probably actually the first time we're able to see it outside of my one stall garage, and isn't it glorious? I totally forgot that this has a tailgate, and I've been unloading it like a heathen. I've never tried it. Okay, so far so good. Whoa. The pins are coming out, but other than that, it works. Holy shit. This car's a truck. All right, good morning. We survived our maiden voyage to go get brats. Car performed okay. I would say it's arguably good enough to drive down to Iowa from here. All right. We're all gassed up, not that you can really tell. Our mileage is 82,044. And our fans just kicked on, which means we're nice and warm. We're hovering at about 50 psi oil pressure, 0 amps, and 190 degrees. So I think it'll make it. Let's hit the road. All right, we're rocketing down the road at a brisk 65 miles an hour. I just stopped at an O'Reilly's in, I think, Richfield, Minnesota. Not entirely sure.
but the entire store was filled with people who had watched this channel, and they all were like, "Hey, are you that guy?" And I was like, yeah, oh yeah, I am." So it was a really fun experience. They were super helpful. I grabbed a rebuild kit, a fuel filter, a new cap and rotor, coil, and ignition module, just in case. Those are the things that I know are most likely to go bad on this trip. Might as well have them. We're rocketing out of town. I'm coming up on Lakeville. Shout out to QA1. Let's keep it rolling. I'll let you know if anything crazy happens. So far, it's been pretty good. All right, made it to our first pit stop. We're a little under 90 miles. Yep, actually full. I just did a little math on our mileage. I think we started at 82.49. So that puts us currently at 82 miles total travel so far since our last fill up, I should say. 4.46 gallons. So we did about 18 miles per gallon on the way here. I'm not gonna lie, that's really impressive for a V8 brick. I was expecting 10. I'll take 18, even if that's actually 15 or 14. Without further ado, let's hit the road. You bastard. There we go. Let's go south. All right. We're almost to Iowa. We're passing the dreaded exit number 2. I'm pretty sure only Kevin and I will understand that reference, but I didn't have to stop there, so that's a good thing. There it is. Thanks for visiting. Hopefully we never come back. Well, I guess that answers the question. Can we take this car in a week, put it back on the road, and drive it all the way to Iowa? Turns out, yes. The answer is yes. All right, so our mileage says 82,271. Our last stop was at 82,131. So let's go ahead and do some math here. What's our magic number? 16. Okay, that's much more like it. That's very much on par with what I would expect for this car. That's the same mileage I get in my Tundra. I don't know if it's bad that my Tundra gets the same mileage as this thing, or that this thing gets the same mileage as my V6 Tundra. This has been a pretty boring adventure, so I think I'm gonna add to it a little bit. So from Kevin and Mook's new place, I grew up 2 hours away, and currently I've got a few things stored there and all of my moving stuff, and I'm gonna be moving soon, so I've been waiting for a weekend where I had a truck to go pick it up. Pick up the motorcycle, pick up my moving boxes. Well, I've got a truck-ish. See if we can make it another 2 hours. Haul a motorcycle back to Minneapolis. I think we can, honestly. It's been so drama-free this whole time. I think we're just fine, so let's hit the road and do it. All right, we're just on the outskirts of my hometown. I'm gonna pull in, get gas. I'm also gonna give this car a wash. One thing I noticed on the way over here, and now I'm sure you can't see it, is our temperature's been climbing whenever I slow the car down. So I think our electric fans just quit working. So we'll give her a car wash, let it cool down a little bit, and see if we can get those fans back online, because I might need those. This might take a while. Okay, she's all rinsed off. Still ugly. Still somehow dirty. This might take a few rounds of washing to get this thing clean, but I went ahead and sprayed down our radiator just to cool her down a little bit. It's cool to the touch, so that's a good start. Engine bay's clean. That's pretty neato. Now I just gotta figure out why our electric fans aren't kicking on and the key is on. I'll start digging into that, see if I can figure anything out. If not, I'm really close to home, so I'm super not worried about it. I can let it cool down. It's fine at highway speeds, but idling, that's where we have a problem. Back in the car, she's running. We're hovering at 190. Got the fans turned all the way down, so they should be on, but they are not. And I've whacked on it with a hammer, and I recall I don't have a multimeter with me. So we're just gonna wing it. We're at 82,468. And I think I'm gonna swing into town, get some lunch, show off the new whip, and after that, I guess we should probably figure out just what the heck is going on with this car. Here we are, Santa Mosa. Interestingly enough, it's not very interesting. Making my way downtown, driving slow, overheating because there's stoplights. I don't know whose idea this was, but it was a bad one. Oh, cool, 200. I'm sure that's fine, I just have to go across town. Why is everybody following the speed limit? Stop! We made it! We made it all the way from Minneapolis back to my hometown and to the farm that I grew up on, where I store some of my summertime toys for the winter. Hopefully around here I've got maybe a manual fan, because I don't know what happened, but suddenly the relay on our electric fan setup isn't working, and I'm really just tired of messing with it. So let's start with getting the bike loaded up, see how much it squats down. Well, all right, let's go look for a fan. The first obvious place I know of is this shed here. This used to be a chicken coop, and also I had aspirations of making a shop out of this thing, so if I would have put spare parts, I would have put them in here. What do you know? Here's a fixed fan with a spacer, so that's a start. And here's a clutch fan. I have no idea if this clutch fan's any good. I'm kind of a fan of it. Here's the windshield out of the F100 I totally forgot about. Is there anything else I might need? Bandsaw, no. Lathe, no. That tire might fit. Yeah, this might actually be the same bolt pattern. I might just need to snag that and throw it in the car. Just to have something. I don't want to ruin those aluminum wheels. If I eventually get a flat, I'd rather ruin that one. Okay. And this fan is the wildly incorrect bolt spacing. Nuts. Okay, well then this is, yeah, schmirk. Your schmirga. Or it's the one I don't want fit. Well, on the bright side, this is the correct rotation. So now I just need some bolts that are long enough to go through all of this. All right, please hold, this might take a while. Well, didn't have any luck finding those fine threaded bolts that I need. I don't have a key for this truck, and that's Dad's truck, so I don't think you'd let me just borrow it on a whim. I also don't have the keys for 50. I also don't think that thing runs right now. Could take the 2630, it's in the shed there, but that doesn't go super fast, oddly enough. I don't have keys for the motorcycle we just loaded. Forgot those at my apartment. That motorcycle doesn't work, that car doesn't work, and I don't have the keys for my 77. Beans. Well, it's too bad I already took those fans out. I think the hardware store is open till 5 o'clock. It's only about a 5-minute drive for me from here. I don't want to overheat the car, but I don't have a ton of other options. So I think for now, I'm just gonna throw those 4 bolts back in there and we'll just go without a fan. Yeah, and then I can just take off from the hardware store, theoretically. Back on the road again. We're running currently at about 150 degrees. Let's hop on the highway here. I'm gonna try and take it easy, keep our temps down, and we'll just roll our way into town. Okay, made it to the hardware store just in time. Managed to get some bolts that were just way too long, so I improvised, because they didn't have the shorter option. I have noticed that my oil pressure sending line is leaking just a little bit. Nothing terribly significant, but I might snug that down while I'm here. And then we'll just see if this fan moves any air. Definitely is gonna need a shroud, don't get me wrong, but at least this way there's some hint of go that way going on in here. Tighten that up, fire the car up, make sure this fan doesn't obliterate itself, and go from there. Well, we're back on the road again. It's significantly louder. That noise you might be hearing is the tie down behind my head is vibrating and it's making some weird noises. But I don't know, the car is riding okay. It's driving fine. Our temperature is steady. Oil pressure is good. Yeah. So let's head back to Kevin's home base, and we'll regroup there. And honestly, if nothing comes up, I think this might just be the end of the video, because we've done everything. Huh. All right, time to ride off into the sunset.
What in the hell is this?
It's a party. I like to party.
She's got a little weight in her.
You'll have that.
What have you bought?
I didn't buy this.
What did you trade for, I guess I should say?
I traded this for that green Dodge.
The Conquista. What?
Don't say it like that.
Dude, this is great. Okay, I gotta ask. I've always wanted to get an El Camino or Ranchero for one reason. Hauling stuff. How did it work?
The hauling bit, it was fine. Like, it didn't feel like there was anything back here, except for when there were bumps or corners or hills. Okay, I could tell it was back here. But loading was easy, you're right. I backed it up to a very small hill and just went, boop.
I've always thought these would be the ultimate machine for loading and hauling like snowmobiles and four-wheelers and stuff.
I'm like, it fits this full-size bike fine.
Damn, what a machine.
It's ugly, but I made it. I don't know what else there is to say. I thought the El Calamitito would have more, well, calamity involved. Honestly, it was pretty drama-free.
Did you know you're missing a lug nut?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's just in case I find one. I gotta have a place to put it.
I guess I'll be in this outro. I hope you guys enjoyed this video of Angus. I don't really know what happened. Do you have anything you should add that's pertinent to this?
I don't even remember what I did to this car. Brakes. I did brakes.
I could probably have seen that one coming. Thank you guys for watching this. I'm sure Angus did an excellent job once again. I hope you enjoyed him hosting another episode of Calamity here on the channel. And we finally did an El Camino, which is cool. A lot of people have always asked for it. I've always wanted to do one. I'm glad I wasn't a part of it because it was a G-body, and God knows my opinion on G-bodies.
I share it now.
Yeah, the stupidest stuff that didn't need to be the way. Anyway, if you guys like this episode, make sure you like and subscribe to support the channel so one day Angus could be here for good and not have to drive all the way from Minneapolis for the weekends of Calamity. We'll see you guys right here next week for another episode of Junkyard Digs. Peace. Thank you for all your work here, sir.
You're welcome. I gotta drive this thing all the way back to Minneapolis still.
Well, that sounds like an episode for behind the scenes. You have fun.
All right, you here. We're going on an adventure. Come on, we gotta go. So I drive the El Camino all the way to Iowa, all around town, just fucking bippity-boppity all weekend long. No cares in the world, no trouble. I get back and I think, well, the car's been good. I should probably drive it to work this one time. I work a mile away from home. What could go wrong? I'll tell you what can go wrong. I ain't got no gas in it. I don't pretend to know a lot of things. Is that a fucking goose? I just wanted to go home.
All right, let's see if it starts now. I mean, kinda. I mean, it still runs like garbage and my dash lights still don't work, but I think we've got fuel. Yay! Let's go get some more of that.